Every global standard is a shortcut for communication and a long cut for imagination. Homogeneity increases coordination while quietly deleting local ways of seeing. When one method becomes universal, innovation must masquerade as compliance to survive. The more seamless the shared language, the more fragile the unshared insight. Technology does not merely deliver tools, it exports a style of knowing. A style of knowing becomes a style of living. Time budgeted, outcome managed, leisure optimized, education standardized. Utilitarian computation becomes a visible doctrine when it governs without being spoken. What cannot be costed becomes culturally inaudible. Once knowledge becomes an object of innovation, the means of knowing begin to outpace the ends worth knowing. Broadcasting, simulation, prediction, and computation do not extend the mind. They reshape what mind is allowed to mean. Artificial intelligence is a mirror that flattens efficiency and threatens depth. When machines know faster, humans are pressured to become interfaces rather than intelligences. Acceleration converts reflection into delay and delay into guilt. When coping becomes the dominant task, new forms of knowing cannot incubate. Complexity crowds the mind the way urban density crowds the street. Motion everywhere, direction nowhere. Stress management that does not seek deeper knowledge is anesthesia, math mistaken for art. Stress management that does not seek deeper knowledge is anesthesia mistaken for art. When progress becomes a good in itself, new knowledge is always assigned to tomorrow. The fascination with what comes next turns knowledge into a commodity and the knower into a consumer. The future becomes a showroom. The present becomes a checkout line. Abstract art begins where the product cycle ends, in the refusal to treat insight as acquisition. Technological knowing cannot see its own frame, therefore it develops unknowingly. Momentum traces patterns whose outlines are real and whose meaning is unexpected. Momentum traces patterns where outlines are real and whose meaning is unexpected. Unexamined models do not remain neutral, they become destiny. The first act of freedom is to make the model itself visible. Technology proclaims value neutrality while smuggling values as defaults. Every metric is an ethics in disguise. The objective realm of results is a political invention. It hides the decisions that choose the results. The more neutral a system claims to be, the more urgently it must be interpreted. The technological model divides the world into objective results and subjective meanings, and then declares meaning unknowable. When meaning is privatized, the public world fills with the meaninglessness. The self is installed as owner of experience and exempt from inquiry. Who cannot question identity becomes governed by identity. Who cannot question identity becomes governed by identity. The split between self and world generates desire. Desire generates motion. Motion impersonates purpose. Desire recruits intelligence as a servant, not as a guide. The image of what is wanted precedes the thought of what is true. Busyness is the social form of unexamined desire. Abstract art begins as resistance to the given. It refuses the world already interpreted. It treats perception as a field to be retrained rather than a channel to be optimized. It does not represent results, it exposes the condition by which results become believable. It does not answer the question, what is it, so much as what makes anything appear. When knowledge is reduced to models, it loses contact with being. thought can rule a life while remaining unable to live it. Untested models become ideology when desire supplies the energy they lack. The most destructive knowledge is the knowledge that cannot transform the knower. When insight cannot bridge the self-world split, it becomes inspiration without incarnation. The modern wound is to know that one knows and to watch that knowing fail to alter one's being. The modern wound is to know that one knows and to watch that knowing fail to alter one's being. Abstract art is one remedy. It makes the bridge by reformatting perception itself. When knowledge serves pre-established ends, it refuses to question the ends. Identity and territory become the unexamined ground of all goals. What remains beyond inquiry becomes sovereign. The highest abstraction is not the non-object, but the unquestioned I that claims the object. A culture can have maximal motion and minimal orientation. Direction is not provided by speed, it is produced by